Hey everyone, welcome to an all new episode of One on Ones. I'm Paul, sitting across from Mike. We're separated by the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean, depending on which way. We're 8 hour time difference. I'm in London, you're in San Diego. Leo just celebrated his second birthday. Happy birthday to Leo. And you managed to get there in between a board meeting in LA to the southernmost tip of California, and now sitting across from me in a Gatorade hoodie. I think you just had a conversation with Jeff Carney, didn't you? Our boy from
Yeah.
Gatorade.
Yeah, man. We action packed week. We had our board meeting this week, which is always in a really important time for us. I thought it was one of our better board meetings. It's a really important time for the league, right?
Yeah.
We did a lot of prep for it, a lot of interesting things to come out of it. Wanted to get some approvals on some interesting things that we'll be rolling out in the future. And generally, I think our uh, our deliberate prep with board members, doing pre-calls with them, and then like really focusing on providing them notes before the actual meeting was valuable. So that was like a learning for us that we took this year, is just really invested in the pre-calls, because we have a pretty relatively large board for a company our size. And so when you only have 2.5 hours, everyone doesn't get necessarily all the things they want to get across. And so being able to pre-bake ideas with them is really important. So we did that, hopped back to Leo's birthday later that night, went and picked up some In-N-Out. That's what he wanted. And then we rolled through the rest of the week, getting ready through playoffs, 4 playoffs. And we just finished a Gatorade pitch. So that's why I'm wearing this Gatorade hoodie. I thought it'd be interesting though. Maybe tell the story how we got in with Gatorade, because that was a relationship that you built before we started the PLL. They're a founding partner of ours, or an anchor partner of ours. I love the story of how we got Gatorade, but it was through your relationship that you built as an athlete. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's a probably the most enjoyable chapter I wrote in my book's called Plant Little Acorns. And it was enjoyable, equally a challenge, because in 2.5 pages I talk about the process of starting the PLL. And the reason why it was it's relevant to what you just asked me is there's a lot of stuff that I did as a pro lacrosse player, and did so without having any idea that we would be partnering up and launching the PLL. And I think that the sort of the end game is that often we don't know what we're going to do next, but if we work diligently with integrity along the way, sometimes the chips fall in really unexpected and pleasant ways. So when it was probably 26 or 27, I was actually the two endorsements I had was Under Armour and Red Bull, and both of them had reached sort of the end of their first term. So I was beginning to work with my agent around renewing both. And then also, as part of your renewal process, you do what's called test the market. Um, no one on my team could get to Gatorade. And they're sort of like the iconic brand when it comes to sports drinks. It used to be run from a sports marketing standpoint by three Jeffs. One of the Jeffs was no longer with Gatorade and was actually running Whistle Sports, the company that I invested in, but also ended up acquiring TLN. So I ended up meeting Jeff Urban through Colin and Samir, and we would go out for drinks and talk about the heyday of sports marketing at Gatorade, because I'm such a sports marketing junkie. Anyway, I pick up the phone and call Jeff Urban and say, "Hey, I'd love to meet Jeff Carney. He was your former colleague. Um, this category is open for me. I desperately want to be a Gatorade athlete, and generally, I think it would be fun to meet him." So he sets it up. I get on a call with Carney, and Carney essentially respectfully declines the endorsement. And I sort of went into it knowing that, but I always believed in the power of relationships without any type of near term goal or deliverable. And I got on with Jeff, and so we stayed in touch. But again, this was probably 2013, 2014, so nowhere near the time of thinking through the PLL. Anyway, cut to that first 10-page deck that you and I had, and having conversations with investors in 2018, early part of 2018, probably 2017. One of our big goals was to court sponsors that were interested in spending with this new league of ours. So we emailed Jeff, and Jeff took a meeting, and we got on flights to Chicago to sit with him and his partner at the time. I think her name was Shauna. Um, and I remember you wearing a Gatorade towel over your shoulder, like RJ wears at games. I took a photo of you from their offices after the meeting. Both you and I thought it went really well. We were going to sign him the following week, but we didn't sign him for 6 months later.
Yeah.
Anyway, my memory gets foggy at that point.
We, August 9th, 2018, 2 p.m. Central, we just showed them a deck of that original meeting. And then the follow-up emails that we sent, which I looked at, they were pretty rabid, man. I haven't even told you this. I was looking at the email follow-up that we had to Jeff, because it was right after you won, right after you guys won the gold and beat Canada that summer or before that. And so we were just sending him photos of you guys winning the gold. I was sending him highlights of your shot, that spin that you took, that spin shot and on Team Canada, and we were sending him like photos of you guys drinking Gatorade. Like it was just like, took a meeting with us, but then the meeting is the meeting, and we had to really follow up. And when you follow up, you want to try to provide some value to someone, not just like, hey, can you respond? And so I was reading all those emails last night as we were prepping for this presentation to Gatorade, and it was hilarious. But also like shows how rabid and dogged we were in trying to get that meeting in. We didn't have enough money to stay in a hotel. We were resilient. We didn't have enough money to stay in a hotel. We stayed at our buddy Chris Green's. I slept on the couch. You were still playing, gave you the bed. And
So much
so
back pain at the time too. I had split discs in my L4, L5. And I remember we'd stand in airports and I would stomp the ground with my right foot because I had so much sciatica pain. But
it was
even what I was going
insane.
to say around resilience is not just a word used that references persistency. We were told no several times by Jeff. I remember going to the Super Bowl that following February, or maybe it was, yeah. When did we officially sign them, Mike? Was it 2019?
Yeah, we signed them. We announced it in August of 2019.
Of 2019, right.
So
So
August 12th of 2019 is when we did the Sports Business Journal announcement. It was titled "Gatorade Likes What It Sees in Lacrosse League," and then our first meeting was our first meeting, but not the first call. We had a call and a bunch of emails before that, but our first meeting was August 8th of 2018.
right. Right. So the Super Bowl's in February, and I remember, that's another event that we're pretty dogged in. And I remember getting to Gatorade Suite. I think this was in, can't remember where. I want to say it was either Atlanta. Anyway, I go into their suite, and I sit with Jeff, and I feel like, okay, we've had this Chicago meeting, things are going really well. And he was basically like, yeah, we don't have money. But you just get told that all the time, and you can't give up, I suppose is the lesson. And now he's a close friend of ours, and a great partner. Has been with us from day one.
Founding partner, man, and support a lot of league initiatives. We've built really cool campaigns this past year with our players and Nakai and Trevor, and so we've brought them into the deal. They're paid
Yeah.
Gatorade ambassadors, right? And so Gatorade really leans in to all the things that we try to offer,
Yeah.
and really leans into the players and supporting and paying them too. So it's a great partnership, man. And Jeff's an OG in the space, so we're lucky to be with him.
So another Jeff, and maybe I'll go from year one to year two. The year twos that we love are the folks in Utah. Our championship series, the OG Champ Series, was our bubble in Utah where we first played there as a league, and have gone back every year since. The other Jeff I'm referencing is Jeff Robbins, who runs the tourism group, the sports commission in Utah. You had lunch with him in Salt Lake. Then you guys went to the games. The games were fantastic. The crowd was up there for best of the year. Obviously, the home team thinks they were, but the Cannons would argue that. And I know the Outlaws would argue it as well. It's not always about the numbers, it's about the energy. And you can fit 5,000 people in a 4,000 seat venue. And if they're all on their feet, that will take a crowd that sits 10,000 any day of the week that are just sitting and watching. And
100%.
that's what we felt in Salt Lake.
Well, dude, it was actually both of that. So it was I'm just pulled up the ticket tracker. It was it slightly outsold by 50 tickets, Albany. And it was second to Charlotte, and so it was the second or third. I'm going to go through every single one here, but the second or third highest performing market from a ticket sales perspective in Utah, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it helps that we had Jeff and the Utah Sports Commission as a league partner, being out in that market beforehand, really helping spread the word. But Utah sports fans, I think, are kind of built different. And we got to give a shout out to the Utah Arrowheads, the fan supporter group there. Kind of reminds me of the Denver Rough Rider supporter group. These are official supporter groups of the PLL, but unofficially tied to what we're doing. And these guys are really rallying the fans. They're creating energy in the stadiums. And what we saw in Salt Lake was obviously 3 games that were 1-point goals, decided by 1 goal, but a ton of energy from those fans, locked in, really smart lacrosse fans on the edge of edge of their seats, standing up when big plays are happening, like you're talking about. It was electric in there, and so I was just like walked away, and I was obviously excited that we are building such an amazing program and franchise out in Utah, but really thankful for our staff that built an amazing experience with RSL, that stadium, Zions Bank Stadium, and then also just the fans there are just really, really locked in and engaged. So I'm not surprised of all the commentary that the Utah Archers players had about those fans, but they're hungry for more. And
Yep.
so we're continuing to scope out more ways to get more involved in Utah.
Yep. One of a few teams that went 2-0 over their homecoming home stands. And that takes a lot. A doubleheader's hard in a
And they
contact
lost
sport like
Schreiber, and
lacrosse.
unfortunately, they lost Schreiber right in that second game.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 11th man showed up for them, no question. And I love Salt Lake, love the energy there. Also want to give a shout out to David Nealman, our friend who was the founder of JetBlue, and also jump started the Utah Utes lacrosse program. Uh, Big Archers fan, just great guy. There's a lot of folks. Last year, Ryan Smith came. He was in Portugal. He's your Jazz owner and just sort of centerpiece of sports ownership in Utah. So the professionals in Utah get behind the market. The fans underneath it are incredibly proud and engaged, and the players give you a top class effort in return.
100%. It was fantastic, man. And
So
then
what we will lead to though is the number one venue with the most sold tickets coming up for the quarterfinals, and that's always Gillette. Massive stadium, no doubt, but most tickets sold. It is our highest revenue event of the year, year over year, which is one of the several reasons why we go back. Obviously, it's one of the most world class venues in the world. The Crafts are investors in the PLL. We've hosted training camps there. It was our inaugural location for our first game weekend ever at the PLL on June 1st, 2019. Um, Boston's Cannon fans have been to games there prior to the PLL. So a lot of rationale, but expect over 10,000 people there in the seats. And I tell this to people, no matter what size venue you're at, when you put 10,000 people in a stadium, it's loud. And there's a decibel change when you go from 0 to 10,000 and 10,000 and more. And then I think 25,000 and more. You can almost hear fans if you pay close enough attention in that 5 to 9,999 fan mark in a venue. Once it's 10,000 and north, it feels like a thunder. There's like a rumbling. It's a, and then something different when you sell out an NFL venue. We're certainly not there, but we want to get there at some point. Talk about Gillette. You excited about it?
I'm stoked. I think what we're doing, obviously the games are going to be crazy, right? Carolina versus Boston, Denver versus Maryland. Boston's going to have a little bit of a home crowd behind them at Gillette, obviously, and worked out in their favor, even though they didn't take the number one seed. That win will be at their back, so the chaos will be coming out and fighting against that. But I'm also really equally excited. These games are on Labor Day, right? Which is an important day for us. Something we'll probably talk about in the future as being a hallmark date for us. But we're starting the day off with the first ever Stars and Stripes Classic, right? Which is a game between Navy SEALs and Green Berets, and it's going to be streamed if you can't get there. But if you can get there, it's going to be streamed on ESPN Plus at 1 p.m. Eastern. And so it's going to be something that has never been seen before. So players from each team made up of Special Operations Command vets from both Army and Navy. We're treating them like pro athletes, fully equipped game gear. We give our players access to trainers, locker rooms, etc. We're basically trying to create this world-class event experience like we do for our pros, but for the best in class special operators from Army and Navy. And so it was something that the cool story behind it is that something that we had an idea around last year. So last year we hosted Charlie Iacono, who's the president of the Green Beret Foundation, and honored a bunch of Green Berets on Gillette's field during a halftime in between. I think it was the Cannons Atlas game. And we were walking off with Charlie and we started talking to him. And I was like, what can we do deeper here? This is really interesting. You guys are sort of building and raising funds for Green Berets. And then, all of us started just brainstorming ideas. And we're like, wouldn't it be cool if we create our own version of this Army Navy game that's obviously has big legacy in football, but do it in lacrosse, but do it for special operations. I mean, the history of lacrosse, both Army and Navy at the college level, is insane. You know this better than anyone playing against both those guys. Teammates of yours in high school that went and played for Navy, buddies from our neighborhood that went and played for Navy. So there's deep tradition. We're excited for the game. Maybe talk a little bit about the coaches too. They're going to be coaching the SEALs and Green Berets.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've gotten a peek at the rosters. It's like exceptional talent. You're talking Division One level talent. Some of my teammates in high school and guys I played against in college and pro today are Navy SEALs and Green Berets. So there's something that's connected to the disciplines in lacrosse and I think our greatest servicemen and women and those who go into combat on behalf of this country and the courage that it takes um, to be a member of our armed forces is, as you said, is something that we have so much respect for, and look forward to honoring and celebrating them as they get to come back and play the sport that they love. I would say, yeah, two guys that are coaching the teams are two men that know the armed forces at a lacrosse level better than anyone. It's the head coach of Navy and Coach Amplo, and head coach of Army and Coach Alberici. And I got to play for both of them in separate rounds when they were assistant coaches with Team USA, which to me isn't shouldn't be much of a surprise that they have coached at the highest level and coach now Army and Navy respectively. Coach Alberici was my offensive coach in 2010, and Coach Amplo was our defensive coach in 2018. Richie Meade, who was also the head coach of the Naval Academy, was the head coach in 2014. So there's a lot of ties to the military academies and Team USA lacrosse, and having those guys on both sidelines is going to be pretty cool to watch.
So a couple things: service members get free access to the games. Any proceeds at all from selling merch will go to a split between both foundations, Green Beret, Navy SEAL. This isn't a profit center for us at all. This is for us to build something special. Ticketmaster coming in. They're sponsoring a free tailgate for the first 200 veterans and their families prior to the game. We have partners, PinFed credit unions coming in, Charlotte's Web, Dude Wipes, Sunbelt, Rentals. Sunbelt Rentals is actually a Jersey partner of the Navy SEAL Foundation. So a lot of brands are also seeing an opportunity to donate and invest in this event, which we're really excited about. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be, like you said, world-class players, some of the best coaches to play. And then we get on with the playoffs, right? Which are going to be make or break. And, something that we talked about in our all hands call this week is, the level of preparation we have to take coming into this bye week before the playoffs, and the attention to detail and the push and the drive to make this event incredible across all different business unit lines. That's the type of preparation these players are taking. When you see how seriously they take these playoff games, and you see how much it means to them, especially, unfortunately, when on the losing side, it actually motivates you. And so we've been really reminding ourselves about the players this week and how much it means to them, how much the playoffs matter, and our coaches too, how much it matters to them. And that's actually given us fuel to push even harder across the organization in preparation for the playoffs. So we're just pumped.
Yep, and that's on Labor Day, and the matchups will be Carolina and Boston at 3 o'clock on ESPN2, and then Denver and Maryland at 5:30. So it's that doubleheader following the Seals versus Green Beret game. Some predictions or maybe some thoughts around first the Carolina Boston game?
Man, I think that look, yeah, Boston's going to have a little bit of a home field advantage. It's not their home stadium at Harvard for this past season, but it's in the greater New England area, so they're going to have some wind at their backs. But look, no one's better at rallying up their team. The chip on the shoulder that the Chaos and the Carolina Chaos have. No one's better at rallying their team than Towers, right? So you've seen it before, sort of bottom of the pack. They go all the way and win a championship in 2021. They go to the championship game in 2022, sort of a lower ranked team. And so they're a playoff championship contender team. And I expect it's going to be a battle to the finish, man. Um, and then Denver, versus Maryland. Maryland's really hot right now, right? But the Whips are coming off of some rest as they didn't play in Utah. So we'll see if they're fully back. Battery life is all the way back, or if we'll see they're a little bit rusty. I know that they've put some practices together, so that'll be a good game too. It's hard to say, man. 47% of our games are decided by from inception, decided by one goal or more. So these predictions are hard. That's why a lot of fans like to sports bet, because you basically have a 50-50 chance of winning. The odds are going to be in your favor. And it's also hard to make sports betting predictions. What do you think?
Well, I think you nailed it on Towers. I would say Blaze, pound for pound, over the last 3-4 years has been arguably the best player in the world. So when you have Blaze Reardon between the pipes, you have a chance of winning any game. I sort of look at the Chaos Cannons game as a game between the goalie of the year, likely, and we already know he's a candidate, versus the midfielder and attackmen of the year candidates. So you have a really high-powered Boston Cannons offense against the best goalie in the world over the last several years. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Offense versus defense, no matter what type of hat you like to wear, you're going to see it in spades. And then I think you'll see a battle for the first possession between Tucci and Rowlett at the stripe. And I'm interested to see how that goes. The Cannons have showed this year that they can be a really strong 32-second possession team. And I just love watching Asher Nolting and Marcus Holman. Marcus Holman will go down, as Asher said in the press conference last week, as the greatest shooter of all time. And if you look at his goal total and his shooting percentage and every place he's got it done, going back to North Carolina as its Wharton finalist, to at the pro ranks and the MLL and the PLL to Team USA, the guy's done it everywhere. And it's not just about catch and shoot or the way that he finishes, is about the way he gets open and the way he scraps for his teammates. The second one, Denver and Maryland, you're right. Like, the Whips are coming off of a bye and Denver's coming off of a loss. So I think both teams, while championship contenders, are going to be looking in the mirror when they show up in Boston and get ready to play at Gillette. Two very capable teams. And I think the opposition for this one sits at O'Neill and the rookies versus Zed and the vets. And the Denver Outlaws have this young team that is stepping up when the lights are on, whether it's Graham Bundy Jr. and his 2-point record setting as a rookie, to to Brendan O'Neill's huge game in Charlotte when we've seen him carry on throughout the season. And then, Zed should be a first team All Pro this year. And then obviously you have Matt Rambo and Mike Chanichuk and the like. So this is a core veteran group versus a core rookie group. Both storylines in both games are going to be awesome to watch.
Hell yeah. Let's head into some questions.
Hey guys, love your podcast and thanks for all you do for the league and for the sport. My name's Chris. I'm a youth coach in one of the big lacrosse programs in the Portland, Oregon area. I played back east in the late 90s and have been impressed with the large number of young kids playing lacrosse in Oregon and with the growing talent in the Pacific Northwest. You've talked a lot about how the PLL, college, high school, and youth programs are all connected and growing the sport, and how the LA Olympics will be a major launching point for lacrosse. My question has to do with the college side. Now that schools from the Pac-12 like USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington have merged with the Big Ten, where several D1 programs already exist, and as the emerging West Coast lacrosse market continues to grow, do you see a chance that any of these West Coast schools will start D1 programs by LA 28? I know that Title IX is a big factor and was curious if you have had any insights in what it would take to bring D1 lacrosse to major West Coast programs. Thanks, and all the best to you guys.
It's a great question, Chris. I appreciate it. And I know Mike and I talk about college and high school quite a bit, so we'll probably ping pong this. I'll start just by answering a few parts of where I think you're carrying this, and first at the youth level. So we love the Pac Northwest. I've been playing in the great state of Washington since my rookie year in the league back to 2008, and some of the best talent in the PLL right now is right out of Oregon, from Sam Hanley to Tucker Dordovic to Ajax Zapatello, like incredible talent. But what I will say about the Pac Northwest that many people don't know is that both the state of Washington and Oregon are not yet officially high school sanctioned states for lacrosse. It's amazing to think how much talent and the growth in youth participation that comes out of those states, yet they don't have the support that only 24 other states in the country have. And so what that means is they have their own governing body that's an independent association, call it, that is responsible for managing rules and schedules and financing the championships, all independent of the state sanction, which would be in Seattle or in the greater state of Washington would be the WIAA. So I just want to give a shout out to the states like Oregon and Washington and 22 others in addition to those that that self-fund and make it all possible. The most recent states at the high school level that have sanctioned to get us to that 24 number, Ohio in 2017, California and Illinois thereafter, Utah, as mentioned, in 2021, Wisconsin, we've been tweeting about them this past year, and then next year, Tennessee's on tap. So, we think about high school lacrosse through the same lens as we thought about international lacrosse. You mentioned the Olympics, and we had dedicated resources into going to get lacrosse back to the Olympics. We're talking about resourcing and dedicating real human power into helping these other 26, now potentially 25 if you count Tennessee, next year states turn over to lacrosse states. So on the college front, the universities, in my experience, the universities are the ones that add programs, not the conferences. We used to talk about that all the time with the ACC, like the OG ACC that just had Maryland, Duke, North Carolina, and Virginia. We used to be like, oh man, wouldn't it be sick if Florida State, Miami, and Virginia Tech had men's lacrosse Division I programs. NC State once did. That's why we did our throwback state uniform for the Carolina Chaos. So the conferences don't do that. The individual universities do. Now, is this an easier sell through if you're a university, a part of a conference like the Big Ten or the ACC? Probably slightly, but it gets split up by gender. So right now there are 75 Division One men's programs, and then right around 400 if you count D2 and D3 men's programs in the US. There's 125 women's Division One programs, and then just around 600 if you count their D2 and D3. So why more women's? That's tied to Title IX and how big football in America is. So if you look at football, fully funded program in America, you're carrying what, Mike, 84, 85 full scholarships. And what Title IX institutes is, okay, you got to find that amount of scholarship dedication made up on the back end for women's sports. So as popular as lacrosse has gotten, schools like USC and Stanford and Cal and some of the ones that you mentioned are starting Division I women's programs because of their huge investment in the men's programs. They have that ability to do that. The last thing I'll say is this is still a lot to work out with the latest NCAA regulation tied to NIL and college sport funding, one of which has been discussed in lacrosse. How does that impact lacrosse? Well, when I was playing, a fully funded program had 12.6 scholarships to divvy out amongst its 44 players on average. Now there is no cap to the non-football basketball programs at universities. So you might see a Johns Hopkins or a Syracuse or a Notre Dame or Ohio State offer 44 full ride scholarships. That's going to begin, I believe, in 2026's season. They can start fundraising this coming year.
Super thorough, data backed, nothing to add. Next question.
Go Archers. Super big fan, love the PLL. My question is about your guys' camera work with the PLL. Big fan of the college game, but distribution is just not the same. When you watch the PLL, it's a whole nother game as a fan while watching it on screen. Just wonder what kind of goes into it with the angles and the views, and what is the difference between a PLL game and a typical college game. Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. I'll take a first stab past the Paul. Paul oversees our production business. So, look, I think I'll give you the high level. We view our broadcast as a software company or a tech company does to their software. It's one of the most important things that we do. And we're lucky to be in partnership with ESPN, who's the worldwide leader in sports. And so when you have partners like that, you're able to put together things that on the broadcast side are one, innovative, but two, leading edge. And so, they have a whole division at ESPN that's only focused on innovation. And we view ourselves as an opportunity and a foundation for them to come in, invest in, and try those innovative things they haven't done with some of their league partners, and we'll do them first. I think at a core, though, what we want to do is we want to highlight how skilled our players are and how amazing, how great of athletes they are. And so you have to invest in the production, in the number of cameras, in the skill and the talent of your production partner. We work with Ross Productions to highlight and unlock how great of athletes they are and how fast and how amazing the sport of lacrosse is. And so any given weekend, we'll have 8 to 10 cameras operating, where in other sports or other college ranks or other leagues, they may have fewer or they may have more. But so we're sort of at that 8 to 10 level, and for big games, we'll invest in more. We're always kind of trying to do innovative things and to just really make the fan. Remember early days in 2018, 2017, we used to talk about, okay, if you're a fan and you can't play sports anymore, you don't play sports, how do you make the fan watching the game feel like they're on the field again? And so we really want to try to make that feeling come to life. We also want to reward fans for watching. We've done things like Game Sync we launched last week, where you can earn XP if you're a member of PLL Nation just for watching the game through PLL's AI technology. So everything's about watching the game. Everything's about investing in production. And we want to get better. So some of the things that we've taken into account, and as we develop our production every year is fan feedback. So if you have feedback and things you like to see or things you want to see less of, let us know, and they always go into consideration. Paul, maybe a little more detail from your side.
Yeah, I think for anyone to be good at the visual arts or production in sports, you have to love it. And I think about our team. We're a bunch of sports fans. We love watching the NFL, the NBA, the MLS, the Premier League, NWSL, WNBA. Like, we consume all of these sports, and we're constantly messaging each other around not only what we like from other leagues, but how we're experiencing the game. And the game might fool you into thinking that it's just visual, it's audible as well. So we have on average 4 live mics on field at any given game, sometimes up to 6. We have the talkback helmets, that's 2, 1 per team often, and then hot mics on players. And then the 6 will depend on whether we wire coaches as well. We want to have great sound that helps bring the visual to life. Mike mentioned 8 to 10 cameras on average for our playoff games, and our biggest games on ABC will flex up to 14. The average college broadcast has 3. So you're right, the production quality is much higher. The game cam is what you call it. That's like 50-yard line. That's the main camera that you see in a football or a lacrosse match. Then you have slasher cams, which sit on about the 30-yard line, or ours is the tip of the 2-point arc. And it's like a slasher in basketball, like that angle, and they have up to 60 frames per second, so you can catch the slow-mo from those angles. Then you have handheld cameras. One of them is called an RF9, which is essentially what our guy, his name's Kyle on the sideline. For those of you that watch, he looks like a triathlon athlete. He runs for 4 games and gets on the field, so you see the action. We have goal cams. We have end zone cams. And then we might be unleashing something really special in the championship game. So we want to continuously improve, as Mike had mentioned. There's so many intricacies. Yes, a picture is, they say, worth 1,000 words, but you got to nail the audio. And the audio isn't just the live mics that I'd mentioned. It's also our talent in booth who do a great job, from our play-by-play to our color commentary. A guy who's been with us from the beginning is Ryan Boyle. I want to tip the cap to him because very few people can bring any sport live to life like Ryan does in our special one of lacrosse.
Hi, my name is Max Ickes. I'm the president of the Denver Rough Riders. Go Outlaws. I got a couple of questions here for you, I guess 2 questions. My first question is regarding the PLL schedule. Do you guys plan to extend the season to have more games in each season? And are you planning to use those extra games to either have more homecoming weekends for the already established teams, or are you going to try to get more neutral sites involved in each season instead of having 2, maybe going with maybe 4 or something like that? My second question is regarding the league jerseys. Are you guys planning on doing the like what other leagues do and have official alternate jerseys? If so, would the heritage jerseys be the alternates? I feel like that would be a really cool concept to do since those heritage jerseys are so great and awesome. But just wanted to see what you guys thought about that. Really appreciate everything you guys do for the league and the sport. Thank you so much. Bye.
Let's go. Shout out to the Rough Riders. Mike brought you guys up earlier on the call. I'm going to start backwards and then we'll go back and forth forwards. How's that sound from a scheduling expansion standpoint? So the kits. Right now, each team has a home and away kit, and we design them internally and work with Champion's creative directing team externally. And we land on these new uniforms every year, which, let me remind those at home that are used to the traditional Big 4 team sports leagues, they update their uniforms as often as an automobile manufacturer updates its grill, which is once every 2 to 4 years. So we update it and take pride every year. What I will say is we have tested an alt kit. So a traditional alt kit is standalone. And I'll get to heritage and throwback weekends, which are different. Those are celebratory moments. The standalone kit, if you think about Barcelona Football Club, because they do this a lot in the Liga and the Premier League, is they'll have like a highlight color kit and they wear it, 1 out of every 5 or 6 matches. We trialed an alt kit for the Water Dogs last year, and we did that in an attempt to reward them for having won the championship the prior year. So they had this exclusive sort of gold kit, and the team only wore it once because they were superstitious around their home and away uniforms. So that's one. Number 2 is, and this will segue us to the schedule expansion, our heritage weekend jerseys are absolutely 20 out of 10 phenomenal. Our throwback uniform, unbelievably phenomenal. 2 weekends of our regular season, 2 out of 10 is 20%. It's a lot. So if you add an alt kit to the heritage and the throwback, you're really not building any consistency on the home and away. The other note I'll make, and this is just, it's subjective, artistic, call it what you want. I love Christmas and Thanksgiving. I would like for that to come every month. There's something to Christmas and Thanksgiving being once a year. And when we think about throwback weekend or heritage weekend, it's more powerful when it happens once. Those are a few angles. Again, it's more art than science. We'll spruce the uniforms up for playoffs as we always do. So keep your fine artistic attention to detail eye on that. And when we add more games, which we will in the near future, and certainly 3, 4, 5 years out, expect us to be able to then sort through alt kit uniforms. Mike, you want to take a first start on expansion and how we're thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as we think about expansion of season, it's inevitable, for us to grow not only the commercial side of the business, but just the attention. We're in the attention economy ultimately, and so expansion of schedule just means that you're covering more of the calendar, and you're also, as a result, hopefully able to raise league revenues and pay players more. And so we want to expand over time. We want to do it in a thoughtful way, like it's sort of a theme to what we talk about, how we answer these questions. I think the biggest thing for us is investing in home markets has been a success this year. And so there's this supply and demand economics that Paul's talking about. But as we do expand, I think that we're going to be looking and continuing to, invest in the home markets for these teams. We talked about at the beginning how Utah, Denver, markets like Carolina, non-traditional markets are really showing up. Obviously, the traditional markets continue to perform for us. But that is something that as we expand the schedule over time, is likely the direction is investing in home markets. And then always keeping an eye to, our neutral sites are great because what they do is they allow us to warm markets for a potential expansion of teams. Whether we sell teams or expand the league into teams, that's something for us that allows us to scope these markets, understand the fan base, see how they turn out. And so we'll always be sort of thinking about with an eye towards neutral sites. But I think that if we're going to really invest, it's going to be where these homecoming markets are going to be over time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we love the home games, and we're clearly a touring model. So to add home games means to add, weekends. And so if you look at it right now, everyone playing one home game, that's 8 out of our 10 regular season weekends. If we want to get everyone under our current model playing 2 home game weekends, then that'll take us to 16 at a minimum with no neutral sites. So we're looking at ways to make it work. And ways are abstract and linear. The other model that Mike's referencing when he says sell teams is we would then move to a home and away model. So that business shifts dramatically under that shift. So all of that's up in the air. I will shout out increased playoffs. We continue to look at ways that we can keep up momentum around the most important games of the year, the winner go home. So we look at playoffs and we look at championship series expansion. Championship series, not only servicing the future of the game in the Olympics in the sixes format, but it is also its own form of expansion. So I'm looking forward to now seeing who our champ series qualifying teams are, seeing those matches in February. I actually can't wait. Coming off of a successful Olympics in Paris and now really being able to eye LA 28 and that version of the game. It's going to be fun to watch. You want to take us home?
Yeah, man. I mean, we're just excited for the playoffs. I think that we talked about the big events that we're running. We're going to be coming back next week talking about semifinals as well, but all eyes on Gillette, all eyes on Stars and Stripes Classic, and all eyes on Carolina versus Boston at 3 p.m. on ESPN2. And then after that, Denver and Maryland. So we're geared up. We're excited. We're going to be cranking until game time, baby.
I think it's a bigger test than most people realize for me to not say go Cannons. Having started my career in Boston and then finished my career with the Cannons Lacrosse Club. I genuinely don't feel an urge to say that because PLL is just so immersed into our day to day and how we feel. But I have to call that out because I care about every player and every team in this league. And the Cannons fans who we will be seeing in a couple weekends were so good to me, and I can't wait to see you guys.